New year, new hair. Welcome to 2026 and welcome back to my channel. Today is the 2nd of January and I've spent the last couple of weeks mostly rotting on my sofa. I've been doing some knitting, I've been doing some planning, and I've been playing a lot of Tetris on my laptop. And it's been lovely, so lovely in fact, that I am quite reluctant to stop doing those things and start working again. But all good things must come to an end, and today is the first day that I am attempting to be back on camera making something for the channel. I have decided to ease myself into the year with a selection platter of mini projects, most of which are things that I've been wanting to make for a while, but all of them are pretty small, so I haven't thought that they would be substantial enough to warrant having their own videos each. So we are grouping them together and ticking them off the list in one swoop. So here are all the things that we will be making in this video, and today we will be starting off with this one, which is a tiny little embroidered pillow fit for a queen. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you will recognise my glorious cat Sunday, who has been with me since 2016 and is honestly the light of my life. You may also recognise this really cute vintage metal doll's bed that I bought for her a couple of years ago from the car boot sale, and this was honestly the best £8 that I've ever spent because she loves it so much. She spends most of her time snuggled up on it looking painfully cute, and when I first bought this I had thought that I would do a full video making a bespoke mattress and duvet and pillow set for it, but after I brought it home, because I didn't want her to have to wait to start using it, I just plopped a cushion and a faux sheepskin little rug on it, and she honestly loves that setup so much that I'm loath to change it for fear of upsetting her. So while we're not going to be doing a full bed makeover in this video, I think that she will appreciate the addition of a pillow because she really likes sleeping with her head raised up on something, usually my hand or my arm, so I reckon a pillow will be good, and that is what we're going to start making today. And for this project I'm going to be using this fabric, which I've had for a while now. It's just a nice lightweight cotton in striped pastel colours, and this to me screams bed linen, so this is going to make up the main portion of the pillow. And then I also have some of this checked fabric left over from my bedroom chair makeover, which I'm thinking will make a lovely accent ruffle around the outside. So that's the plan, but first off we need to start by making the pillow innard, because I do want this to be a removable pillowcase because Sunday is a dribbler, so I want to be able to take it off and wash it. So I'm going to start by making a little pillow shaped cushion out of some of this scrap linen. Let's go. Inner fabric is ironed and I'm just trying to decide how big I want this pillow to be. The bed isn't small, but I also don't want it to take up too much of her room in case she decides she hates it, which is a very real possibility here. So I'm thinking something like that will be good. How about I snip it down like this? I love the sound of a good pair of scissors. You can just tell that they're working hard. I'm just going to stitch this around 3 edges so that it's ready for stuffing. I won't bother filming that because it's kind of boring. It's actually quite a bit later because I stopped to eat and then my friend called me, so I was on the phone for a while, and now it's nearly 3:30, and because it's fucking January it is going to start getting dusky soon, which is very annoying. I cannot wait for spring. But here we are with our little pillow innard, and I'm going to be stuffing it with some innards from a human-sized pillow which has gotten all bobbly and horrible, so just going to refluff these back out a bit and then shove them in there. I don't want to overstuff this because Sunday only has a little neck, so I don't want it to be too poofy and not good for her to sleep on. So I'm going to make it fluffy but not too fluffy. It's actually very annoying to me how messed up the inside of this pillow has gotten just from regular use. It got so lumpy and uncomfortable, which is why I don't feel bad about cutting into it and shredding it up for this project. It's taking me ages to refluff all of this stuffing out. By the time this is filled up and I've sewed this top seam closed, it is probably going to be a little bit too dusky to film. So that's been kind of an uneventful first day of filming, but what can you do? This needed to get done. Okay, I'm back, and here is our little Sunday sized pillow all filled up and sewed in. Now I can move on to making the pillowcase. So I'm going to start by cutting out 2 pieces of this fabric for the front and the back of the pillow. Now we'll give these a quick iron, freshly pressed. Before I sew anything together, I need to do my embroidered lettering on the front of the pillow, which, as you can see from my drawing, it's just going to say Sunday's name in a nice gothic style font. And because I don't trust myself to freehand that lettering correctly, what I'm going to do is pull up that word on my laptop, trace over it, and then use that as a guide for my embroidery. Got it up on my Illustrator document here, and now I'm just going to zoom in until it is about the right size. I am just going to trace it directly from the screen, which you could argue is a little bit of a risky thing to do. Obviously, I don't want to damage my screen at all, but I have done this before in the past and it's not been an issue. You just have to make sure that you're not pressing too hard when you trace, and use a nice soft pencil. Okay, that will do. And now I can cut this out, and then that's gonna go on here. Before I get to stitching, I'm gonna quickly iron some of this webbing onto the back of this fabric just to strengthen it up a bit and hopefully prevent the embroidery from warping it too much. I've just realised that I've cut the fabric so that the stripes are going horizontally across the pillow, and I had originally wanted them to go vertically down. So I'm trying to make a snap decision as to whether to recut this or just proceed with the horizontal stripe. Either is cute, and it seems kind of silly to recut it because then I'll have these little small pieces of fabric with nothing specific to do with them. How did I manage that? That was dim. We're going with the horizontal stripe. It doesn't matter. Okay, that's on there. Now I just want to get the positioning right with my template. I'm just going to be stitching straight through this tracing paper, which is a method that I've done before and it works out quite well. You just cut the tracing paper off at the end and pull out the excess with tweezers. I did that when I did the embroidered lettering on my bedroom curtains, and I also recently made a kind of luggage tag thing for my boyfriend's dad for Christmas. So I know that it works. Looks pretty good to me. So we're ready to stitch, and the colour that this lettering is going to be has been purely dictated by what colour embroidery thread I already have, which is this dark burgundy red that I do think will look nice against this. There are 6 threads that make up this one piece, and I'm going to split it in 2 so that we're working 3 threads at a time, which I think will be better because some parts of this lettering are quite thin, so I don't want too chunky of a thread to start. And I've already tangled this all up, so I'm going to detangle this and get 3 threads ready on a needle, and then I'll come back to you. That took ages, and I'm hating myself for pulling it apart in the way that I did. Sometimes I find when I'm doing something in order to illustrate it to the camera, I do it in a more stupid way than I would otherwise. But anyway, problem resolved. 3 strands of thread on my needle, and we're just gonna start filling this in. And I don't know the names of stitches because I'm not an embroiderer. It's just something I have done a few times for fun. I'm just going to do a diagonal stitch following along the lettering, trying to keep it as neat as possible, and then I might clarify the letters with a straight stitch around the outside of them when that's done, depending on how it's looking. I really hope that this turns out good and that Sunday likes it. So like I said, there is quite a high chance that she completely poo-poos it once I put it on that bed. With the exception of the bed itself, I think everything else that I've ever bought for her or made for her, she has completely ignored and treated with either indifference or contempt. I made a little bed for her a couple of years ago, and admittedly it is a little bit small for her. It's kind of more of a kitten sized bed, which was an accident on my part, but never once did she even sit on it. So yeah, I have to accept the fact that this may have the same fate. And I guess pets are like kids in a way that you can't really force them to give a shit about your decor choices. They're just chaotic little beings that do what they like. But yes, I will be very pleased if I ever get to witness her laying her little head on this pillow, and this is going to take me quite a while. Embroidery is not a fast process, and I am not a fast embroiderer. So far we've just done the very bottom of the Y, so we're going to speed this up a little bit with choppy edits as each of these letters are filled in. Okay, done. And I'm sure you can tell by the light change that it's been quite a few hours. It is now 3:10, so I don't think I'm going to finish this project today, but I am pretty happy with how this lettering has come out, and I don't think that it needs defining with an outline, so I'm just going to leave it as is. And now I can just pull away all of this excess tracing paper, which is quite satisfying for the most part, and then the bits on the insides of the letters are a little bit fiddly to do, but let's rip these bigger bits off. And now I'll get my tweezers out and just pull out these little dinky bits and any stuff sticking out in between. Okay, lovely. Now let's get this off this hoop and give it another quick iron. Nicely ironed. This is what the back of that embroidery looks like if you were interested. Not too messy, quite pleased with myself. And now I can lay it down on top of my cushion, get the placement right, and then stab a couple pins through the whole thing just to hold it in place for the time being. For the back panel, I need to split it in two, with one section being shorter than the other so that we can get into and change our pillowcase when needed. So let's slice down here to start. I am obviously going to be adding the ruffle trim before I sew the whole thing together. I just want to get these pieces pinned and ironed into position, trying to line up the stripes where I can. This longer side is going to overlap the smaller one slightly and fold around like that. So the back will be something like this, and then the pillow will be able to be popped out of that section there. So I'm just going to roll over all of the seams on these pieces and iron them in the place that they want to be, and then I'll hand stitch the edge seams on this just so it's nice and tidy. And then I think the light will be gone today, so I'll be back tomorrow with all of these pieces ready, and then all we need to do is add that ruffle trim and sew it all together. Okay, here is our pillow now. It's kind of pieced together. You can see our back piece here. I've just pinned it around the pillow itself to check the size, and I can see it is a little bit big at the moment, but that is okay. We can fix that when we sew it together. But before we sew it together, we need to make our ruffle trim, which, like I said, is going to be made out of this fabric, which I just gave an iron, so it's nice and flat and ready to be cut. So I think what I'll do is cut a few long strips of this so that we've got nice ribbons that we can then fold into the ruffle shape that we want, pin in with our main fabric, and then we can stitch it all together. Okay, ribbons made. I just ironed them down with two ends on the inside. This will be the edge that I sew inside the cushion, so there shouldn't be any fraying. Now I just need to pin them into a basic ruffle shape, something like this, around the edges of this pillow. I don't know why, but I'm getting myself really confused in the construction of this. So I've pinned this top ruffle onto the front panel here, and then I was trying to figure out where do I pin the back panel. There's just like a lot of fabric in the way all of the time, and I'm thinking maybe what I should do is sew the ruffle on to the front panel first, then sew the back panel on. Why this is so confusing to me, I'm not actually sure. I don't have a construction type of brain. I have a make it up as you go type of brain. So this solution seems like the best idea to me. I'm just hoping for the best here. Figure it can't turn out too badly. A cushion is literally the easiest thing you can sew, right? It's like the thing that you learn to make in your first textiles class at school. So I don't imagine I can mess it up too much. I don't really do New Year's resolutions particularly, because I find that they give me unnecessary pressure, and you can never plan ahead too much. You don't know what life's going to throw at you. But if I did have resolutions, I would say I just want to kind of upskill in a variety of things, specifically sewing and knitting, and you only get better at something by having a go at it. So yeah, that's the thought process here. What have I done? Do any of you have any crafty resolutions for the year? Anything that you're trying to improve on in 2026? Let me know down in the comments. Also, by the way, I do want to say I do read a lot of the comments I get, but for some reason I have gotten really panicky about responding to comments. I'm not really sure where it came from. I worry about if I respond to one and I don't respond to another one, does that look bad? What if I say the wrong thing? What if I don't have anything interesting or funny to say? And it just kind of makes me freeze and not want to say anything. But I do really love the fact that people do comment. I really like reading your thoughts, and a lot of the time I do respond, but only in my head. That's another thing I'd like to try and get better at in 2026. Please don't hold me to it, because if there's one thing I struggle at, it's social skills. Never been my strong suit. But yeah, I'm going to carry on slowly stitching this and constantly knotting up my thread, and I'll show you when this top ruffle is fully attached to the front of my pillow. Top ruffle is sewn on. I think it looks pretty nice. Still trying to figure out the logistics of sewing this thing together, but I am just going to carry on adding the ruffle around the rest of the front of this pillowcase before I have to muddle through thinking about that too much, because the answer at the moment is intangible to me, and this little task is doable. So I will show you when we've got 4 ruffly borders. This took me so long, but I finally finished sewing on all of this ruffle. It took me ages, partially because I kept getting distracted and staring into space for extended periods of time, but also just because it was pretty fiddly keeping the ruffles in place as I stitched. I was going to sew the front pieces to the back with the pillowcase inside out, which is how I guess you would normally do it, only I actually think it's going to be a lot easier to do it with them the right way round, and I'll be able to hide the stitches pretty well along this ruffle border anyway. I've been using a nice bluey thread that does go quite well with this colour. So I'm going to start stitching it together now, but I don't think I will finish it today. I ended up reducing the front panel by about 4 stripes in width, so I need to make sure that I do that as well on the back piece so that it's even, but in theory this bit won't take long. I made very good progress on the back of this pillow last night and got this bigger rear panel sewn on, and now all I need to do is sew on this tiny last section up the top here, give it a good iron, and then we can stuff our pillow. And voila, one little cat-sized pillow fully complete. And I've got to say, I'm very chuffed with this. I think it's turned out pretty adorable. The colours are really nice, the fit is good, I think it's feeling decently made, and I'm particularly proud of my embroidery on the front here, and I really hope that Sunday appreciates all of the hard work that I put into this, even though I doubt it. But I'm going to be presenting this to her later on in this video to give me time to defluff her bed for the camera, and for now we're going to move on to the second project on my list. Okay. Our next project is the only wearable accessory slash non-homeware thing that I'm going to be making in this video, and it is also the most recent addition to my list of things that I want to make, because I only decided to make this last week when I was out pottering around the charity shops and I found myself drawn in by the bright lights of Miniso. I think I've been watching too much Vanilla Mace and I have been influenced, because I was fully considering spending £30 on a little fluffy rabbit girl hybrid bag charm thing. I try my best not to be swept up into the hype of new trends and TikTok fads and whatnot. I am not immune to the call of shiny, cute looking plastic shit. The blind box thing is pretty clever marketing really, combining the dopamine rush of normal shopping with the thrill of gambling. It reminds me of opening packs of Pokemon cards when I was a kid, but as I was being swept up in the excitement and nostalgia, I managed to pause for a second and ask myself some important questions. Namely, is this worth the money to me? Is this something that really feels like me? And am I sure that I will get use out of it? Will I be happy if I open the box and I find my least favourite of the options staring back at me? And when I realised that my answer to each of those questions was no, I managed to leave the shop without making a purchase, but with a new plan to make a cute little bag charm for myself, which, if it turns out rubbish or is something that I never use, won't matter too much because I won't have spent £30 on it. So this is what I'm going to do. Since I get to custom design this whole thing, I figured why not practice some self-love this January and model my little bag charm mascot off of myself. I wanted her to be wearing something that is recognisably me, so I started out by sketching out a full body version wearing the outfit that I think most encapsulates myself and that I have outfit repeated probably hundreds of times over the last decade. My long-suffering green striped jumper and purple velvet trouser combo. I also recently knitted myself this cat bonnet from a pattern that my boyfriend got me for Christmas. So I thought that she could be wearing this too. After standing back and looking at this sketch, cute as it is, I asked myself some questions again. Am I really happy with this plan? And is it what I really want this item to be? And I realised that it wasn't quite right, and that I didn't actually want a full body for my bag charm. I just want the head. So I scrapped the jumper and the trousers, scaled up the head, and added a green stripe to the tab at the top as a nod to my jumper. She is also going to have purple hair, and that can reference the trousers too, so we're not missing out on anything. I looked through my boxes of assorted tat for something that I could use to attach it to a bag, and I found this green carabiner, which I'm pretty sure I got in a Christmas cracker a few years ago, and I thought that this would work well. I also found this little plastic paperclip pot, which I have actually already drilled a hole into the lid of and scribbled with some Sharpie at a previous date, don't remember why, and I'm thinking that this is the perfect size to use for the base of the head. And I'm just going to build this up to turn it into a cute little face using, of course, paper mache. So this is what we're starting with, and I'm hopefully going to turn these two objects into the bag charm that I desire. And I think now I'm ready to get going on it. I'm going to start by building up some of the features on the face with a little bit of scrumpled up tin foil and some masking tape before we go in with the paper mache. I was wondering whether to have this the right way up or this way up. Without the cap kind of does work better as a head and neck. However, I like the idea of keeping the functionality of this as a pot, and I reckon I'll be able to hide this lid fine underneath the hat, so I am going to do it this way up. There's absolutely no exact science for how I'm doing this. I'm just using the tinfoil and the tape to build up some of the shapes that I need to define the face as best I can. Cheeks, nose, eyes, lips, chin. One thing I do appreciate about this pot is that it's very rounded, so it has a built-in extremely soft jawline, as I also do have. That's actually one thing that I've gotten really paranoid about since I've been filming my face. I didn't realise quite how undefined my jawline was until I started doing YouTube, and the more I was seeing myself, the more harrowing of a realisation that became. But I've just about come to a place of acceptance, and I think it's only right that my mini me bag charm will also be rocking a soft jaw. Are we looking similar yet? Please don't say yes. So far it's actually looking really fucking creepy. It's not giving cutesy girl whatsoever. It's more like the fucking moon from the Mighty Boosh. May make some revisions on the facial features to make it a little bit less pie in the sky. Okay, I think what I've learned was that I was doing way too much before. Less is more. And now I'll add on the fringe and the pigtails, because those are going to be paper mache as well. Okay, this is what she looks like, and I'm accepting that this is very much a trust the process type of one, because at the moment she is not looking cute. The face is giving deep pan pizza and her pigtails look like little legs, but I'm just telling myself that the toilet paper and glue will surely solve everything. I'm gonna start sticking and see what I can do. So it's been about 45 minutes of me doing this first layer of paper mache, and I think I've done as much as I possibly can because it's now all gloopy and sticky and hard to work on. But this is how she's looking. I'm actually pleasantly surprised, I think. The pigtails are still a bit weird looking, but it's hard to get too much detail with the first coat, so I'm not worried about that. And I need to leave this to dry for a few days before I come back and do a second coat. It's a new day and the first layer of my paper mache has fully dried. I was editing the clips of me making this last night, and I realised that this is really looking like a root canaled tooth, which is pretty gross, but what can you do? This is going to need quite a few more layers of paper mache and dry time in between, and to be honest, a lot of that's going to be pretty samey to what we were doing yesterday, so we're going to skip a lot of this nonsense, and instead I will just give you updates at the start of the day to show you the current state of it. So yes, paper mache day 2, go. Starter paper mache day 3. Yesterday, I mostly rounded out the back of the head. Starter paper mache day 4. The lid is now covered. And that is it for the paper mache. That was a quick little montage, wasn't it? The last time I was working on this, I just added a few more details to the front of the hair here, and I was filling in some lumps and bumps around the place. And this is about as smooth as I care to get it with the paper itself. And next I want to try and smooth it out a bit more with some sandpaper. So I'm going to go over all of our head with this now, and then I'm going to define a few of the details a little bit more with my engraving pen to get it ready to paint. Can you tell that this is an hour's worth of sanding and engraving? Probably not, but it is. And I think that this is probably as good as we're going to get in terms of smoothness of surface and details built in. And now it's ready to paint. And I'm going to be doing this over multiple layers. So first thing, all I'm going to do is lay down a base coat of a pinky peach on the face and the purpley colour on our hair. First coat of paint is done, and I think it's already looking pretty good actually. It's surprising what a little bit of colour can do. Now I need to let this dry for a while before I go in with a second coat. And I think I'm going to switch my attentions over to the cat hat that she's going to be wearing, because these type of bag charms seem to always have some sort of cutesy animal element. So I think that this will be a nice touch. I'm going to grab some knitting needles and the wool that I used for the original one. Items procured. I've gone for pretty thin needles here because I obviously need this to be quite small. And I also grabbed the hat I'm basing it off of for reference. So I'm not going to be knitting it in the same way as I knitted this one, because I think that that will be confusing. I'm just going to try and knit the separate elements and then sew them together. I think a good place to start will be to knit this ribbed brim that I've got around the front of the bonnet here, because that seems like one of the simplest bits to do. And I'm just going to be making this up as I go really, and constantly checking the size against my mini little head here. So let's go. I would have tried to adapt the existing pattern and just make it smaller if the shape of the head that I'm working for was similar to a human head, but it's just not. It's a lot more bulbous, and I've got to account for the fact that the lid is going to be on under this. So I think making each of the pieces separately and figuring it out when I stitch it together is probably the best option. And we're just going for a flavour of the original hat anyway. It doesn't need to be a carbon copy. The weather today is so miserable, and it's kind of a good reflection on my mood. Feeling a little bit agitated and anxious just with the state of the world. I feel like a broken record saying these kinds of things, but the news is just relentlessly depressing, and there's so much shit going on all of the time. And then the newest horrible thing that happens buries the 10 horrible things that happened the day before. It's like really hard to keep up with. I hope that all of you watching, wherever you are in the world, are doing okay. It kind of feels impossible to at times, and I have questioned like how useful it is for me to be doing these little crafty projects in the context of a world that's on fire. I never finished that sentence because I'm honestly unsure about the answer to that question, and I was really just thinking out loud while I was knitting, so I was going to cut that bit out. But now I'm editing and I've decided that I do actually want to say some things, hence this awkward tone shifting voiceover. Obviously I'm not a political commentator, and I do not aspire to be one, nor am I an academic with any real depth of knowledge on any singular issue, so I often feel unqualified to articulate my thoughts on what's happening in the world, especially when I'm just sat here making a small paper mache bag charm of my own head. It is a little bit jarring, but you don't need to have read 1,000 books to have an understanding of your own morality, and you don't need to have studied politics at university to see the things going on around you and know that they're wrong. My limited knowledge of colonialism and imperialism have shaped my understanding of events in Palestine, in Congo, Sudan, Lebanon, Venezuela, Iran, Greenland, and more. And I am not going to claim to be well versed in the history or politics of any of these places, because I am not. But I do know that people have the right to self-determination, to freedom and equality, and a life free of the threat of constant violence. I see the struggle and I see the resistance, and I support that wholeheartedly. I see what's happening in the US with the frightening slide towards fascist authoritarianism and the brutal treatment of people living within its borders. I see what's happening here in the UK, where Keir Starmer's shitty Labour government are paving the way for a reform win at the next general election, and if they do win, groups who have already been targeted by successive governments, immigrants, black and brown people, trans people, working class people, people living in poverty, will be even more at risk than they already are. I don't have to be a genius to spot the patterns of oppression, dehumanization and violence running throughout, and the relentless pursuit of power and profit at the expense of marginalized people that drives all of it. The capitalist system is a complete failure and can only exist by the continued exploitation of billions of people. It leads us into repeated humanitarian crises and will ultimately lead us to climate catastrophe. So it's vital that we as a global community band together to protest and to resist, to show solidarity with one another and to make our voices heard, because there are so many more of us than them, and because change doesn't ever really come from the top. It comes from ordinary people, grassroots organising and consistently showing up. And in that vein, I wanted to highlight for my UK viewers an upcoming protest in London on Saturday, March the 28th. It's called Together Against the Far Right, and it's supported by an alliance of progressive organisations and unions, all coming together to reject the worryingly pervasive narratives of division and racism in this country. It's obviously a running joke that the left can't get their shit together and get organised, that we get bogged down by infighting and moralistic quibbles, and that may be true, but I have to believe that there are enough of us committed to a truly free and equal society that we can fight back against the hateful rhetoric of the right and support our fellow humans so that we can all have a future. Please come along if you are able to. Bring your friends, bring your family, and if you see me there, please pretend that you didn't, because I'm incredibly awkward in person. This channel is about making things, and that's what it's going to stay being about, because it's what I know and it's what I love, and I know it's what you want to watch, but I just felt I needed to take a minute to say all of that, and now we can awkwardly tone shift again and go back to making a tiny hat. Okay, that's done, and it is slightly too short. I would like another inch on both sides ideally, but rather than unraveling this and starting from scratch, I'm just going to knit the same again but shorter, and we can attach the two together. Done. And that is a much better fit. Now I need to make up the main body of the hat, and for this I'm just going to knit 3 little rectangles in stockinette and hope that I can manipulate those into the right shape in the sewing stages. So I'll be back when those are knitted. Oh look, it's a new day, and I have all of my little knitted pieces here that are going to make up the mini hat for my bag charm. This big piece is going to go up and over her head, something like this, and will also be pinched up like that to form the little cat ears. Then I have 2 small rectangles that are going to fill in the gaps on either side. Obviously we've got this little arched piece that's going to frame the face, and I have a long strip that's going to be sewn around the bottom to make up the necktie, and it's going to bow underneath her head. And I don't think I'm illustrating this very well. All I need to do for this now is carefully sew these together using some more of my wool, a tapestry needle, and you will see very shortly exactly what I mean. Okay, the hat is done, and safe to say it is adorable. It's turned out pretty close to the original thing, and it fits our little head very well. Goes on lovely. The only thing I don't love about it is I wish I'd done this bottom tie a little bit thinner, because it's quite bulky, especially when it's tied under her chin like this. So I think a lot of the time I might just leave it hanging loose, but that's not a major issue. And now that this is done, we can move our attentions back onto finishing up this paint job. I'm gonna start by trying to get the face right, because the hair I think will be relatively easy. Also, most of it is going to be covered by that hat anyway. The face is the bit that I'm slightly worried about, because I do want it to look kind of cutesy in the style of the bag charms that you see, but I'm worried that it's just going to come out creepy. I just drew on a pair of eyes as a guide, and at the minute it's looking quite terrifying. So I don't know whether the paint is going to help with that or make it worse. We can only find out by giving it a go. Using some dinky paintbrushes for this, and acrylic paint. Been going for a while, and so far she's not looking great. I'm not going to lie to you. It doesn't help that the surface of the paper mache isn't perfectly smooth, but then I've had acne since my teens, so my skin texture isn't perfectly smooth. I painted over the eyes because they were too stark black and white, and I've just started painting painting them in again. The lashes, I think, were the bit that was just too much. I'm going to deviate quite a bit from how I drew it in my drawing because that face isn't translating that well onto the real thing. And I want her to be cute. Maybe I won't do actual black. Maybe I'll do more of a grey colour for the eyes. Slightly better. I know people talk a lot about one face syndrome or whatever it's called in art, and that is certainly something that I struggle with. If I try and draw in a different style, I do find it difficult. One question is, should she have eyebrows? Probably, because I do have eyebrows, so it would be accurate if she also did. Also, her hair is undoubtedly going to end up looking better than mine because I only dyed this a couple of weeks ago and it's already faded loads, which is really annoying. But yeah, I'm going to keep chipping away at this and I'll go over the hair with a bit more purple and I will show you when I'm happy with how she's painted. It took me a couple of hours and you probably won't be able to tell, but the paint job is finished and I think she's come out pretty adorable. I did in my nose ring, she's got some little hearts on her cheeks, which admittedly I don't have. Painted the lid as well with my little BF on there. Oh, and I did also quickly paint a strip of like edging stuff in a Kelly green kind of colour for the strap, and that is also drying. This is already mostly dry, but I think I'll let it fully dry overnight before I come back and finish it off with some Mod Podge. So, final day on this bag charm, and all it needs now is a sealing coat to give it that shiny plasticky finish, and while that's drying I can put the strap together. I'm using some green paper clips that I've bent out of shape, which I'm sewing into the strap itself, threading through the hat, poking through the hole in the lid of the pot and securing underneath. This means that my little pot can still be opened and used for storage, though I'm past the age of needing a place to stash things for the purposes of sneaking them past bouncers or whatever, so I don't really know what I'm going to put in here. Maybe some Werther's Originals. I was going to add some white stripes to the strap, but I ended up liking how it looked as just the plain green, so I ended up skipping those and instead just adding a little green bow for a bit of detail. I attached it to the carabiner and now I can clip it onto any bag of my choosing. Now I can carry a tiny little version of my own severed head around for good luck. What a joy that is, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm genuinely thrilled with it. She's so cute and she's making me feel like I'm so cute as well, which is a welcome feeling. And now I think we can move on to the next project of this video. This next project is a knitting experiment disguised as a coat hanger, and this is actually a continuation of a project that I started a few years ago now when I was sewing scraps of old woolen jumpers around wooden coat hangers to make nice padded hangers that I could use to hang some of my more delicate clothing items. This is one of the ones that I've made in the past and I want to try this project again and make myself a new hanger, and since I now kind of know how to knit, I figured why not make it from scratch this time rather than using existing knitted fabric. And really I'm using this project as a vessel to try out two new things that I want to learn how to do in knitting. First of which being, and this might seem really simple, I have never changed wool colour in the middle of a row before, and I want to practice this for the sake of being able to do more fun and complicated knitting projects in the future, and specifically I want to learn how to knit lettering. I've spoken before about how it tickles me to add personal branding to my projects. Like on this hanger, it's got a little label on the back here. So I figured a good starting place for knitting lettering would be to do the words beige flannel, and I thought that they could go across the bottom bar of a coat hanger like so. I had a look online for guides for knitting letters and I found a free downloadable knitting chart on Ravelry. Thank you very much to Sylvia Leek for designing this chart and making it available, and I used this chart to help with the second thing that I wanted this project to help me learn how to do, and that is making a simple knitting plan using a spreadsheet. Here is mine. I've seen other people doing this and it makes so much sense to me, not only because I love spreadsheets, which I do, but also because it will make it really easy to mark which stitches and rows I've gotten to so that I don't get lost along the way. I've only done this plan for the bottom bar of the coat hanger so far. I haven't factored in these top sections and I'm thinking I'm just going to cross that bridge when we come to it. And today I just want to get started on knitting this section and see how I go. So I'm going to begin by casting on 92 stitches for the top row as per my plan. I'm using this creamy beige off-white yarn because beige flannel, and I'm using circular needles because I think that they'll give me more room to work. Done! Now I'm going to knit 2 rows just in my plain beige, with the second row having an increase on both ends. Actually, we're going to be increasing pretty much every row until we get to the widest point of this, because it needs to slope in line with the edge of this. I want it to fit in nicely here. Whether it will, whether it won't, is yet to be seen. Okay, I'm up to the point where I need to do the first knit on my first letter, which is the very top of the B, and the lettering on this is just going to be black because I want it to be quite simple and clean, and then go back to my beige for the next 40 stitches. I'm a bit worried that this piece is going to end up being too wide for my coat hanger because I needed it to be quite wide to fit all of the letters on, and I don't know if I've miscalculated, but I think when you view your project primarily as an experiment, it kind of frees you up to just have a go at something and not worry too much about the outcome. Actually, I'll be surprised if this turns out well, because how can I expect it to when I never done anything like this before? I am just marking my spreadsheet as I go by changing the colours of each of the cells. I'm finding that helpful. Since we're doing a beige flannel branded knit, I figure this is a good time to talk about why my channel is called Beige Flannel. I know from my analytics that I've got a lot of American viewers, and I think, but don't hold me to this, that in like popular American vernacular, maybe a flannel would be seen primarily as like a flannel shirt. Beige flannel could easily be read as like an autumnal Gilmore Girls, this type of vibe, and that is not what I'm going for. A flannel in the UK is just like a washcloth that you use to clean your face. So when I called it beige flannel, this is more what I'm picturing. And I actually called it that because it has been a combo of words in my head for many years as I've thought about different business ideas or things I could do. I just always liked those words. It feels quite me for whatever reason, and not because I have a particularly clean face. When I started posting a few bits on TikTok under this name, my initial idea was to film my videos with a wet flannel stuck to my face to give me some level of anonymity, but then I realised because what I was doing was like craft projects, that was just completely impractical, so I scrapped it and just kept the name. So yeah, if you were wondering, beige flannel is this, not this. I don't think this is going to be particularly interesting, just slowly watching me knit this, and the sun is starting to go down now, so I'm going to carry on with this evening, see how far I can get, and then I'll give you an update on this project when it's a little bit further along. This is where I got up to yesterday, and now I'm gonna skip ahead until this whole panel is finished. The bottom piece is complete, and it is slightly too long for the hanger. So note to self, if I do this project again, make the pattern slightly less large. This time around, I'm confident enough that I'll be able to fix it up when I sew it all together. Now that this is done, we just need something to cover the top sections of my hanger, and look what I have here. I made these the other day when I was sitting on the sofa and not really in the mood to film myself, and I just made up the pattern for it by counting the number of stitches on this one that make up a certain length and kind of just winging it. Here's what these look like on my spreadsheet. I did a little heart on one of them, and the other one has the BF kind of signature at the top there. Very nice. Now we have all of our main pieces of knit that I need ready to sew onto this hanger. Only the hanger itself is not quite ready to be sewn onto yet. I want this to be a fair bit chunkier than what it is at the moment. So first I'm going to bulk it up a little bit by sewing some blankety fabric around the wood to get it to the chunkiness level that I desire. Okay, done, and as usual that took longer than I expected, but it's now all fully padded up to about the right girth that I wanted. And now I can just stitch these on. I'll start by pinning them in place, and then I'm going to use more of the same cottony wool that I have been to stitch them all together. And this should be, I think, pretty easy and satisfying to do. I'm really pleased about the things I've managed to learn during this project. I'm really excited about other things I can try and figure out how to make using my spreadsheet pattern system. Doing that really tickled my brain. The sun's going to be setting soon, and I think I might like to continue with this cozied up on my sofa. So I'm going to say goodbye for now, and then I will show you the finished hanger in the fresh morning light tomorrow. The finished coat hanger. Here it is, and I'm pleased with it. It looks decent and it feels pretty substantial. And now I'm going to be able to hang something on this, which I could have done before I did all of this, of course. But now whatever I do hang on it will feel that bit more special. I think a bespoke coat hanger like this would make a really nice gift for someone, a bride maybe, or someone that's got a special outfit for whatever reason that they want to hang up. It's quite a quick and easy craft that you can do for somebody for birthdays or whatever. The most important thing for this project though is the things that I learned along the way of making it, and I'm confident to say that the next time I make a coat hanger like this, it will be better than this one. So that's steps in the right direction. Now this is finished, I've realised that I much prefer this side to it than this side, just because of the sizing mistake I made on this bottom bar. The lettering is too big and it goes too far to the edges of the coat hanger. I would have preferred if it was kept within kind of this central section. This other side just feels a bit more balanced to me. Though saying that, I did also make a mistake on this side too. When I was designing the pattern, I deliberately did it like this, so that when that back side was flipped up on itself, this lettering would read XOXO. Then when I came to knit it, I hadn't registered that the first row of the lettering was on a purl row, so I should have been reading the pattern right to left, and instead I read it left to right, and I've ended up with it saying OXOX, which is another good lesson learned. So that's that, and I don't think I have anything else to say about this, so we can move on to our next and I think final project of this video. Today we're making this, which, if isn't evident from my drawing, is a matchbox, and I've been wanting to make one of these ever since I did my toilet room makeover, because I think it is handy to have some matches available in the loo, and I'll make no further comment on why. I did look at buying a matchbox when I did that makeover, but I couldn't find one that I liked. The regular types of ones that you can buy in the shops are kind of uninspiring, and the nicer fancy ones that you see online sometimes are generally pretty expensive, and also not necessarily exactly what I'm looking for. I want something kind of fun and decorative, which plays into the idea of matches and fire, and naturally that led me to think of this meme. So the short version of the plan for this is to make a matchbox out of some clay, paint this on the top of it, and add some pretty nice details on the sides as well. And I have actually already started this project, so let's rewind a few days to my slightly stressful afternoon playing around with some air dry clay. My thought going into this was that it would be pretty easy to make. It's a simple shape and not very big, so what could go wrong? I grabbed my leftover clay and the rolling pin that I keep in the kitchen but literally never use, and I started rolling out sheets of the clay, thinking that I could easily construct a box with them. I used this tiny broken pair of sewing scissors to cut the sheets down to size, and then clumsily tried to stick them together, which was hard. After a while I realised that this wasn't working, so I switched to freehanding the box instead, building up the sides by just pinching and squeezing the clay and then rubbing the surface smooth with a bit of water on my finger. And this turned out okay, so I set it to one side and went about trying to make the outer box thing that this little tray would be sliding in and out of. And this proved much more difficult because I didn't really have enough clay left, so the sheets that I was rolling out were proving too thin for the box to maintain any kind of structural integrity, and it kept collapsing in on itself. At one point I remembered that I did have another pack of air dry clay, but then I realised that it was a different kind of clay than the one I'd already opened, and I didn't know if it would be okay to mix them. Plus, one of the reasons that I decided to make this now was so that I could use up the clay that I'd already opened that I was worried was going to dry out soon, so I was determined to make it work. After a few failed attempts at this, I thought maybe a classic matchbox shape is too difficult for me to make with the materials I had available, so I should turn this into a little lidded matchbox pot instead. And while that seemed boring to me, I eased my concern by adding some little sections inside the box for a bit of fun, and this raised bit where I thought I could stick the striker strip onto. Happy enough with that, I then tried to make the lid for it, which in theory should have been a very, very easy thing to do. However, that also turned out to be hard. It was just floppy and annoying and difficult to get to the right size, and I did know that I wanted this to mimic an actual matchbox, and I was really compromising my vision with this option, so my heart just wasn't in it. So then I did what in hindsight I should have done from the very start, and I made a little box out of some cardboard to the size that I needed to slip my tray into. Then I rolled out some more clay and just smashed it around this cardboard, and then tried my best to smooth it out as much as I could with my finger, and this somewhat worked. Fuck it, that'll have to do. Here it is after a few days of drying out, and considering how much of a pain this was to make, I'm pretty pleased with the result. When you hold it up next to a standard matchbox, it is comically large, but for my purposes this will fit much better into the space that it's going into, and it gives me a much bigger surface area to paint onto. So now we can move on to doing just that. I'm going to start out with the easy bits and paint the inside of the cardboard and the whole of the inner tray with some red acrylic paint to lean into the fiery energy. Now I'm going to paint a base coat on the whole outside of this in this nice pale shade of green. I knew I wanted to do a green for this because it's going in my toilet room, and I think it will match well with the blind and the bin holder and everything else in there. While the outside of this green one dries, I have printed out a picture of the image that I want to go on the top here to about the right size to fit our matchbox. And I'm going to be cheating a little bit in this project because why the hell not? I'm going to trace the basic shapes of this onto the top of the matchbox just to give me a guide when I'm painting. It's obviously not going to end up looking exactly like this image. We're going for an artistic interpretation, but I'll be happy to have the bones kind of in place to give me a little bit of a guide. I actually looked up the background of this meme before I decided to use it for this project, because if it had some really sad, dark backstory, I wouldn't have felt comfortable using it for something like this. But as it turns out, the burning house in this photo was actually deliberately set fire to for the purposes of firefighter training, so I think it's allowed. Also, it is just such an iconic image. I actually feel like a weird kinship with this girl, whose name, by the way, is Zoe Roth. She kind of makes me think of all of the jobs and projects that I've spent time and energy investing into in the past, only to one day grow tired of them and metaphorically burn them down. Over the Christmas break, I did have a little mental wobble re this YouTube channel, and I found myself fantasizing about repeating this pattern, ghosting and shutting it down and never posting again. And I allowed myself to have those thoughts because, to be honest, I find them kind of comforting that even with the investment that I've put in, I'm not tied to it and I get to choose whether or not I continue. It's kind of a freeing thought, and just having the knowledge that quitting is an option made me realise that that's not actually what I want to do. I do want to carry on trying to see it grow, and then maybe I'll burn it all down at a later date. Who knows? Anyway, here she is, and now I'm going to trace this directly onto the top of my matchbox. Our outlines are on here, and now I'm going to try my very best not to mess it up when I add the paint. We're working at a really small scale, so I'm going to be using dinky little paintbrushes, and I will be taking my time with this. I'm actually really enjoying filling this in. It's kind of like a paint by numbers, only without the numbers, obviously. I remember when this meme sold as an NFT, and I looked it up and it sold for nearly $500,000, which seems low-key crazy to me. I never really understood the NFT thing, nor crypto in general. I also don't know the implications of that for like recreating the image. Whether me using it for this project will mean that I now owe a rich person a load of money. I feel relatively safe in the knowledge that whoever that rich person is definitely isn't watching the beigeflannel YouTube channel, so I'm probably safe. Also, I don't really see how memes can be owned by anyone really. They're kind of like the property of the internet, and the only reason it had any value to begin with was because of how ubiquitous it already was. So I feel justified enough in using it, and now I've started doing this, I can tell that it's going to take me quite a lot of time to finish. So I think let's cut to a musical montage while I finish this up. Now to do the bit that I've been avoiding. This is about as good as I think we're gonna get. She's not perfect, but I think it looks decent enough. You can tell what it's supposed to be. And now I'm just gonna quickly paint our little designs on the two sides. I think I'll also add a BF signature on the back, and then I'll leave it all to dry until tomorrow. Here it is in the light of day, and I'm pretty pleased with it. And now I'm just going to finish both of these pieces off with a thin coat of some Mod Podge. Is there a single video in which I don't use this? I don't think so. Now they're nice and glossy. The final thing I need to do is cut the striker strip off the original matchbox, stick it on the inside of this one, fill it up with matches, and then we're finished. She is done, and I'm really pleased with this. I think it looks really pretty, and of course it functions well as a matchbox, and I think that this is going to look really nice in my toilet room. So overall it is a resounding success, and that is the final project of this video, ticked off the list. We've made it to the end of this video, and I thought I would end by quickly gathering together the 4 little things that I've spent the last couple of weeks making for myself, and Sunday of course, just to see them all together in one place. And I was thinking that all of these projects would actually make really nice little stocking stuffer gift ideas for people, so maybe I should have made this video before Christmas, but I didn't, so here we are. I really enjoyed doing these little desk-based projects as a start to the year. None of them were too challenging to make, but they are all things that I'm really happy to now have in my home. And I actually do have quite a long list of other smaller projects that I'd like to make myself in the future, so if you'd like to see another video like this, please do let me know. As ever, thank you so much for watching, stay safe, and goodbye!